Hello you guys, and welcome into my very first Kagurabachi Chapter review. Well, maybe not review. I think breakdown or discussion is a better word, but hey, who really cares? We're here to talk about Kagurabachi Chapter 3. I really enjoyed this chapter. It was simple, it was straightforward, and we even met a couple of brand new characters like Hinao? Hinoa? I think it's Hinao. But yes, we met Hinao. I really liked her design. I like the little bangs with the multicolored thing going on. And we also met Sharu, who is currently being hunted by a mystic swordsman. So going into this chapter, I was actually kind of afraid. Because the way chapter 2 ended, Shiba went to Chihiro and said, hey, there's a mystic swordsman in Tokyo. We have some information about this person. And I was scared. I was like, no, anything but that. Mainly because the manga just started. If we took down one of the mystic swordsmen or even ran into him so early on, I'd be a little bit concerned. Mainly for the longevity of the manga. Of course, there could be a greater goal introduced later down the way, but I do think taking down one out of the 6 mystic swordsmen this soon would be a little bit absurd. But thankfully, that is not what happens here. We learn that the mystic swordsman that they got some information on actually is working with a bunch of other sorcerers. And it just so happens in this same chapter, we actually meet one of the sorcerers that is in cahoots with the mystic swordsman. It's weird that we don't have names yet, so I'm just calling them Mystic Swordsmen. But yeah, apparently the guy has a sword that brings clouds out of it. A lot of people were guessing that all of the Mystic Swordsmen have elemental powers, which I think is pretty fair to say. We have Chihiro with water, we have this guy with clouds. I wouldn't be too surprised if we have ice, fire, earth, etc. later on. Of course though, just because we know that the mystic swordsman that is after the girl does have clouds coming out of his blades, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's only a cloud-based ability. It could summon a dragon out of the clouds, just like how Chihiro's water summons goldfish. But hey, we'll worry about that mystical swordsman later since he's not even in this chapter. What we do get is this goofy looking fellow right here. This guy has the ability to summon Daruma dolls out of his hand, and it looks like they explode. I'm not too sure what happened here. It looked like it got shot with a gun and then it blew up, but either way, they can explode. If you've read a couple of manga or if you've been to Japan or watched any shows from Japan, you might know that these guys are actually somewhat common. Typically, they don't explode in real life, so I do wonder if the other Daruma dolls that you see him spawning by the end of this chapter will also explode, or if they will have some different abilities that Chihiro will have to figure out how to combat. And the reason I make the suggestion that his Daruma dolls can do more than just explode is because while you see the Daruma dolls coming out of his hand in the last panel, you can also see that his hand is also holding up Sharu, the little girl we meet this chapter. Which I just gotta say, I'm surprised the explosion didn't just completely obliterate her. You'd think that an explosion big enough to destroy this soba noodle shop would also take out the little girl who took that hit almost at point blank range. But hey, I digress. If I wanted to use headcanon and put some logical spin on this, you could say that this guy is actually trying to capture Sharu alive. And that could just go back to the fact that we don't even know why the mystical swordsman and the group of sorcerers actually want her in the first place. When Chihiro asked her in this chapter, she was like, and then she kind of mumbled off, right? All we know is that sorcerers are after her and her parents are dead. Oh yeah, and also that she hasn't eaten in quite some time, which is why they ended up in the soba noodle shop in the first place. Another thing I am wondering about is how easily this guy actually found Sharu. I wonder if he had some way to track her down, maybe like a GPS perhaps, or maybe that's his sorcerer ability, or maybe he was just hungry and stumbled upon this soba noodle shop. But judging by how he treated the waiter, I don't really think he was here to eat. While this character had a somewhat cool introduction, I really don't see him sticking around for too long because 1, he's not a mystical swordsman, and 2, we have Shiba here. We can absolutely tag team this man to hell and back because last we saw, Shiba was actually right outside the shop, chilling by the car. But with that being said, I am hoping we get a really good fight next chapter, simply because this would be the first real fight we get in Kagurabachi. And since the author has promoted this, or at least since Shonen Jump has promoted this as a battle action manga, I feel like that is going to be the main selling point to a lot of the fan base. And if they can deliver really good fights, then I believe that this manga has a really bright future ahead of itself. Of course, amazing and well choreographed fight scenes aren't what make or break most manga, but since this is publishing alongside Black Clover, One Piece, My Hero Academia, and JJK, I feel like there is a certain bar or threshold that this manga has to achieve and or surpass. And hell, all of those mangas I just listed are actually on their way out of the door since they're all in the final saga. So if Kagurabachi can deliver on the action front, it might have a straight monopoly in Shonen Jump. So since I didn't review chapter 1 or 2 and I started here on chapter 3, one of my main complaints with the first 2 chapters was how the dialogue shots and background shots didn't look so great. With that being said though, chapter 3 is looking pretty dang solid. I like all the background shots. I like the shading when they do close-ups on the face now, and even the old school Maple Story expressions are starting to grow on me. And with that being said, I would love to hear what you guys think about Kagurabachi chapter 3 and or just the series in general if you haven't read it up until now. And yeah, I will be posting weekly reviews on Kagurabachi here on this channel, along with seasonal anime live reactions, so if you're interested in that, please subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Signing out.